There's all kinds of stuff going on that stops people. And I respect the fact that they feel that way in the sense that, look, when you feel a fear, whatever it's about, saying something touchy subject with your spouse or partner, it feels real. I get it. It doesn't have to be there, however. And sometimes knowing what to say and having the clarity of where you're headed can take that fear, it's really a lack of confidence can take that away.
Welcome to the Legacy in the Making show. I'm your host, LA's foremost success coach, Tony Marie Torrey. I interview leaders and influencers who've gone beyond the superficial markers of success and claimed true fulfillment by leveraging their positions to create positive and profitable changes in their businesses and beyond. They share their stories and offer real-world, boots-on-the-ground experience that translates into practical advice to apply to your own journey. I invite you to this injection of wisdom and inspiration so you can prevail and leave your own lasting legacy. Welcome to the Legacy in the Making show. I am so proud to be here today talking to the wonderful Mr. Bill Cates. And Bill is widely recognized as one of the foremost experts in the art and science of acquiring new clients through referrals and personal introductions. Bill is president of Referral Coach International, founder of the Cates Academy for Relationship Marketing, and the host of the podcast Top Advisor Podcast. Bill was recently rated as the #1 financial advisor influencer by Indigo Marketing. That is super impressive. Bill also is a best-selling author. His books Get More Referrals Now, Don't Keep Me a Secret, Beyond Referrals, Radical Relevance, and his latest book that I had the privilege of getting the preprint version of, The Language of Referrals. Bill, you are a force to be reckoned with, and I'm so happy for us to have a conversation today.
I'm not sure I've been described that way, but my ego board behind me, I have to add my new book to that one. I call it my ego board. But yeah, it's great to be here. In case anybody misunderstood, it's not Bill Gates. Sorry. But Bill Gates has a lot of money. Bill Gates, maybe I'll help you make a lot of money by serving more clients. So that's why I'm here.
That's awesome. And so obviously we're going to be talking about Bill's book today because that's an important, fresh piece of information that we'll have to share with you. And also, of course, we talk about how it is that we create a lasting legacy on this particular show. So I'm really curious to know, as a leader, as a person that's in a position of influence, Bill, what is it that you want to do and create in your lifetime? What are the problems that you want to solve on a larger social context?
It's actually shifting a little for me right now. So forever, almost 30 years, I've been helping financial advisors, financial professionals, a lot of different types, acquire more clients through referrals, personal introductions, and other related topics. And so forever, it was helping them grow their business, helping them make money through serving more people, all the good stuff there. And then about halfway through of doing this, I got so in touch with the importance of the work that advisors do and how it helps people create financial dignity. It helps them build wealth, whatever their definition of wealth is. It helps them create legacies for other families. And we're in some cases, some sectors of our economy where some families weren't able to even think in terms of legacy and helping the next generation. And so now it's even shifted a little bit more. And after this book, The Language of Referrals, I'm in the midst of writing another book, which is all about helping people with their beliefs and their assumptions and their thinking and emotions around money. And it's going to be a fun book, actually. So that's my next step of just helping the population. And I've been helping the population of the world through advisors. Now I'm going to do a little bit direct to them with that next book. So that's my story.
I love that. And a term that really resonated with me there that you mentioned is financial dignity. And I feel the same way. I've worked with a lot of different people in various different aspects of business, a lot of leaders, CEOs. And when I started working more with people in the financial services sector, I really got in touch with the synergy that we create in helping them build their businesses and the broad impact that has on empowering the rest of the population.
I agree. I call it the ripple effect.
Mhm.
You help one person, especially a business owner. And this is true. I know there's more than just financial advisors listening to this. Anytime we impact the life of someone else, we're impacting everyone else in their life to some degree, right? You help another CEO or an owner of a business get his or her act together. And guess what? It affects not just their family, it affects their employees, which then affects their family. So there's
Mhm.
such a ripple effect. And I think it's important for us to really understand the power, if you will, the ripple effect. And I'm
Mhm.
not trying to overstate it. It's not like we are always like changing lives and it's life or death. And yet there is an impact. And that's what I like to do. That's what I want to make sure I have that impact. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I agree. And I firmly believe that the ways in which we are going to change and improve the world is through the business sector more than any other arena, more than politics, more than anything. I really think business is what's going to change the face of the world.
Think about it. Capitalism has brought more people out of poverty than anything else. And there's a new vein of capitalism, if you will. It's called conscious capitalism. And it's being ethical and doing what's right for everybody, for clients, customers, employees, et cetera. So when we act on that level of dignity with our own business and integrity with our own business, yeah, we really do impact a lot of people. So I agree with you.
Absolutely. And I've actually had the privilege of interviewing some of the people that are involved specifically with that conscious capitalism. And
Ah,
yeah, we're definitely in alignment there. So let's talk about your book now, Bill, because it really is super hot off the presses. Sizzling hot. There it
yes,
is.
baby. Yep. Uh-huh.
Your baby. So I'm curious, why another book about referrals and introductions? Because I know obviously you're a huge expert in this area. You've already written other books on this. Why, what at this point in time called you to write a new one?
Sure. A couple of reasons. First of all, the landscape has changed a little over the years. Not a lot. The principles stay the same. Principles are universal. They don't change as quickly as, let's say, a strategy might. Tactics can certainly change a lot, and they have because of the do not call regulations, because of the pandemic and doing a lot of virtual stuff now, and other changes. It's hard to reach people. The tactical aspect has definitely had to change. And one of the strategies has had to change as well. And that is we're emphasizing introductions a lot more than ever before because it is so hard to reach people and to be relevant and get on their life's radar and et cetera, get our foot in the door. I would say the fastest way to relevance, the straightest line to relevance with someone who doesn't know you is an introduction from someone they do know and trust. And so that's how I tie all this together. And why the language of referrals is it's the tactical side that so many people want and need. I found that a lot of folks are afraid to ask for referrals, introductions. We can talk about all that. They don't have access to the strategy. But when they see the words and they go, oh, I could say that, or I could say that, but I'd shift it a little. I'm expecting people will change the words a little to be natural for them. Then all of a sudden the strategy becomes accessible. Usually we think strategy first and then tactics. There is a role and a place to think tactic first because it can open us up to the strategy when they see how it fleshes out. That's this book. It's really just giving everybody what to say, or at least sparking their imagination on what to say around all aspects of personal introductions.
A lot of what I see out there in the book world, and I railed against it in my own book, is like a lot of books are out there that are used from a marketing perspective and they agitate the problem, but they don't really provide any tangible solutions. And I have issue with that, actually. It's like in my book, I was very specific, I shared specific strategies, scripts, wording, just like you have in your book, to empower anyone who reads the book to be able to take that and make it actionable.
It's actually bad marketing to agitate the problem, not provide a solution.
Right.
Whether you're providing it right there or hinting that you have it, people get aggravated. And I'll give you a specific example. I have a guy on my podcast who's talking about, I don't want to give it away because I don't want to rag on anybody, but he was offering up a problem and a test. It was medical nutrition related. And I said, okay, you do this. And then what do you do? And the solution was actually what you should have been doing anyway, even if you didn't get the test. So why get it sounded cool, sounded sexy science, right? But why even get the test if your behavior is just what you should be doing anyway? So yeah, yes, aggravate the problem, stimulate the opportunity, and then make sure that the solution is at hand.
Exactly. And then there's always going to be a certain set of people who want help implementing. And that's
Yes.
really where we come in with our businesses, right?
Yes.
Help people
Okay.
execute on these ideas if they don't feel they are able to do it themselves, but we empower them in the first place to go and do it by themselves if they want to.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what today's going to be about, right? We can get
Yeah.
nitty gritty a little bit on this if you
Yeah.
want. So great.
Exactly. So I know you make a distinction between referrals and introductions. And it's really
Mhm.
interesting because without having read any of your work, I actually made exactly the same distinction in my book too, because to some extent it's intuitive knowledge, but it's not intuitive knowledge to everyone. So
Yeah.
share with us why you made that distinction.
Yeah, and with that, people may be saying referrals, introductions. I'm going to advocate for introductions. So why did I call the book Language of Referrals? So let's get to that. First of all, the referral, which is often called a referred lead, call George, use my name. It just doesn't work like it used to work because of all the barriers to reaching. George doesn't pick up the phone if he doesn't know who it is, wondering why his friend's giving his name out. So we know that just doesn't work as well. As I mentioned earlier, the straightest line is an introduction. So we always got to be thinking in terms of connections, introductions. I think the conversation around referrals, if you will, is not done until we've negotiated or arranged for a good connection to be made. So I highly recommend everyone listening that if you're talking to a client, customer, prospect, center of influence, anyone has ability to connect you with others, use the word introductions because that represents what you want, the
Mhm.
connection. Now, why did I call the book The Language of Referrals rather than The Language of Introductions? What I know in marketing is that you always want to use concepts that are already in the listener, the audience's brain, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to introduce a concept that they don't understand or they don't get or they don't normally think about unless you immediately define it. Like in the financial world, right? A lot of people say we're a fiduciary. Most people don't actually know what that means. So
Mhm.
all you're doing is confusing people rather than helping them understand that's a good thing for you, right? So we know that the word referral, everyone understands referrals. Everyone wants more referrals. Yeah, we're really talking about personal introductions here, but that's a marketing thing just so people will say, I get the basic topic of this book. And then we emphasize, we got a big part, big section on turning the willingness to refer into an actual introduction.
Yeah, and I totally get it. And in my own business, I had that experience of people making referrals to me, which meant they told their friend about me. Or they sent their friend, colleague, whatever, an email about me. But I didn't hear about it until after the fact. And guess what came from all of the decades that I've been in business? Crickets, like nothing. And that's actually how it is that I started realizing, oh, the system doesn't work this way. And so now I teach myself and teach my clients how to introduce me and teach
Yes.
them how to do the same thing as well as part of my practice. You obviously dive deeply into that. And I know your book has 6 separate sections in it. As you dive deeply, tell us about those different parts and why you've broken it up into the various areas.
Sure. So the part one is, let's call it the internal language of referrals or introductions, mindset. A lot of mistaken beliefs and limiting beliefs around this and self-talk. People don't even realize sometimes their self-talk or the stories that they believe just are getting in the way. So we start with that. Not a huge section, but it's important we start with that. Because if you don't have the right mindset, all the strategies and tactics in the world will be certainly, if not useless, less effective. Then we get into the language of referability. How do you become more referable? How do you get to a place where you get more unsolicited introductions? And if you do ask, you have more fertile ground there because people are loving your process and you, et cetera. Then we get into the language of promoting or encouraging introductions. It's not really asking. I always tell people don't confuse it with actually asking. And it does have its place and it can stimulate unsolicited introductions. Then we get into the actual asking. And how do you do it without, when people come to me for coaching, they say, Bill, is there a way to ask for referrals, or sometimes they'll say introductions, without looking like that cheesy referral guy? I get cheesy referral guy or creepy referral guy. And when I do presentations in person, I have a slide of that creepy referral guy, and it gets a laugh, and no one wants to look like that except for that guy. There is a way to ask that's dignified, that's client-centered, that's not pushy, that's not needy. Then the next one is the language of objections or concerns. How to, let's say someone doesn't want to, not everyone likes to provide introductions or give referrals, especially on the financial side, where we're talking about individual financial situations. So how do we deal with that? It's a soft approach. The most important thing when you get any kind of objection or concern or resistance or whatever word you want to use is to learn more about it. The first thing is to explore it and to understand it. And sometimes you have to back off. It's fine, no big deal. And then the last one is the language of introductions. In other words, as I mentioned, how to turn that willingness to do this from folks into actually making the connection. So it's pretty complete in terms of that aspect of the process.
Yeah, I love it. It just really, the book takes people through the entire journey. And one of the things that I loved that you had in the book is you actually have some instructions on how it is that people can take the language that you're providing in the book, make it their own, and have it feel natural and unscripted.
Yeah. Words are important,
Mm-hmm.
and the words we use are important. And with that said, sometimes how we say them is more important. There's a lot of folks quote bad statistics around the percentages of how much the word versus how the word said. So I'm not going to get into that, but we do know there's some people in our life, right? You've seen this, Tony. They can say anything to anybody and get away with it. It doesn't matter what words they just get away with it. And part of it has to do with how they do it and who they are doing it. But I expect people, I tell them in the book, I say, look, if you like these words, for instance, you brought up the idea of that word of mouth. You get the word of mouth, but it's not turning into anything. Mm-hmm. And you're doing the right thing. You want to teach your clients, prospects, customers the best way. In fact, give you some scripting here. A simple little phrase that I've learned to say is, here's what I found works the best. And most everyone likes to know what works the best. Now, they may want to adjust how they introduce you. They may want to do something differently, but at least have a favorite way. And here's the way that works best or works very well. And you will at least garner their attention, and they will pay attention to that and realize that word of mouth is nice, but it's not always enough, right? You need to create that connection. Yeah, I'm expecting people to use what words they like, discard the rest. But if you don't like the way I said it, how could you accomplish the same thing with your words? And all the scripts and word tracks in the book will just stimulate that imagination and creativity. And all of a sudden people say, well, if I could say it that way, I never thought about saying it that way. Oh, I could do that. And that's a huge ahas I've given to people over the years. I just love it. And as I mentioned earlier, now the strategy becomes accessible to them. And so people are asking more, and a lot of people that I work with just start getting them without even asking because they're doing all the other good stuff.
One of the things that we do and recommend for our clients is actually help them write and publish a short, helpful book. And I'm curious to know, because my belief is that it actually really helps grease the wheels of these introductions and referrals. But I'm curious to know, what is your opinion about people implementing that strategy?
Yeah, I generally advocate for folks to have their own book, but a good book, not just any book, to have a book. Because if someone actually reads it and says this is crap, then that's not going to help you at all. My theory is, or philosophy is this: experts, and pretty much everyone listening to this is an expert in their area. Mm-hmm. Experts write and speak. It's what they do. in my humble opinion. And so, first of all, it's a great calling card. It's a great demonstration of your credibility and expertise. Generally speaking, most people that self-publish, they don't make a lot of money from the sale of the book. They make their money by having the book. First of all, writing a book, by the way, will get your head around a body of knowledge like nothing else will. I remember a long time ago, one of my mentors said, Bill, even if the book's never published, you're going to be glad you wrote it. And he was right. That was my first book, Unlimited Referrals. It's just got my head around this body of knowledge, and it made it much easier for me to communicate. And then it's a great referral tool. A lot of folks who are going to introduce you, refer you, whatever word you use, they like to have a tool. They like to have a way to do it. It could be a link to a video on your website, could be a guide, report, checklist that you've put together, or it could be a tangible product like a book. And if you're there in person, you can even autograph it to the person that it's being given to, and that adds a little something to it. Yeah, it's a great tool. I really do encourage people. There's so many ways to get a good book written. You don't have to necessarily do all the writing, but make sure it's coming from your thinking. That's important. And don't use ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other AIs to write the book. You can use it to stimulate ideas. And I use AI all the time to stimulate my thinking and to think of something in a little different way. But it's 99.9% coming from me. And that's important. So yeah, totally support your concept there.
Yeah. And just speaking of ChatGPT, it's like clients ask me if we use it as we're helping them write their book. And the answer is absolutely yes, we do. But especially once you do start using it, you get really, you know what AI language is. You can recognize it. It's actually very recognizable once you get used to it. And we don't want that in the book. We want, one of the reasons why we record all our sessions with our clients and transcribe them so we can get their exact language, their turn of phrase, all those, because then it has to be in your voice, not a robot's voice.
Yeah, it really is. And if people know you and then they read the book, they hear you as they read, even if it's not an audible version, they can hear you in the words if they know who you are. I interviewed someone for my podcast recently, and I should let everybody on this listening to this know that I'm also interviewing Tony for my podcast, and we'll just flip the script a little here. But Jay Baer, he said, right now, AI stands for average information.
I love it.
So let's understand it's average and often wrong information. It's a tool to use, but it's not the end all.
Back to the referral conversation, Bill. Would you agree that most advisors are not as proactive as they could be when it comes to getting these introductions and referrals?
Oh, yeah, without question. That's one of the reasons I've been in business for 30 years. A lot of it, get back to the mindset. They're afraid to look needy. They're afraid to look pushy. They don't want to make it all about them. They're afraid they're going to lose the sale, the deal. Everything that I write, everything I teach is all designed to boost the reader's confidence so that they will actually take action. And again, back to what I mentioned earlier, if they don't have the right words, they can't access the strategy. And that's what's happening right now. I get a lot of folks come to me very successful, and they get unsolicited introductions, and that's good. And that counts as long as they're the kinds of folks you want to get introduced to. That's the caveat there. And there's ways to deal with that. And I deal with that in the book. But they come to me because they almost feel guilty. They know they're sitting on this gold mine of opportunity. They've done well, and they know they could do better. And that's what we help them do. And it's taking that desire and then giving them something that we know works, and then building their confidence, and then they take action. And the goal is to not need me anymore, whether it's reading the book or coaching or whatever other ways I work with folks. The goal is to get you to a point where you don't need me. And you just say thank you, and I'm happy with that. And the check clears, of course.
That is important too. I too have had the opportunity of working with some very successful people in the industry over the years. And it's actually one of the reasons why I end up doing so much mindset work when people do come to me and we do the whole business coaching aspect of things, as opposed to the marketing and the publishing. Those that make the most money from working with me do so because we've hit all three areas, and we've worked together for a few years, and then they're ready, their wings are spread and ready to fly. So I have a bunch of different certifications that are all geared towards helping shift people's mindset. Because when I first started coaching, I was super excited about my newfound skills. And I took people through these amazing conversations, and they got clear on their vision for their life and what it was that they wanted to create and the action steps associated with doing that. And then they'd come back to sessions time after time, not having taken the action. And so I do think that's a really core piece that oftentimes people are missing. As one of my mentors used to say, a business problem is a personal problem in disguise. And so
Right. I like that. Good.
and so when we really go in and do the kind of personal work in a way, it's amazing how that helps people shift mindset blocks, and then they're on fire. And it's so much fun to see that.
It is. It starts with that. And a lot of folks don't often come to folks like you and me because I need to shift my mindset, right? But
No.
on some level, they know that's true
Mhm.
because whatever story they're telling themselves about the situation, and they're unhappy with the situation, they wouldn't be coming to us, or
Right.
they have some huge opportunity they want to take advantage of. They know that their thinking and perspective has to change. And I know I'm preaching the choir with you, but what happens when our awareness shifts, right? When we see the problem, the issue, the situation in a slightly different way, then we open ourselves up to new options of thinking and acting. And that's sometimes what it takes to take that next step. To be candid, in my opinion, the first thing one needs to take action is clarity. Clarity on the action and the result that will ensue, clarity on the situation, clarity on the context, right? We know that if we're not clear on what we want to do or what we want to say, we're not going to act. But when we have a sense of that, then we can do the work to gain the confidence to actually take the action. So I'm sure that's a lot of what you do is help people just let's get clear about this, clear about our feeling, our thinking, the context, and then we can make a better decision.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I do a consultation with people, and usually we start out, as I recommend, a short 15-minute conversation just to make sure that there is like the alignment, the synergy, and it's someone that I want to work with and they're interested in working with me. That's the most
Good.
efficient use of time, rather than a lot of my clients used to have people put a good hour on their calendar only to discover that they weren't the right prospect for them. 15-minute and then a longer consultation. And this was with actually the head of a large nonprofit. And even just after the consultation, he was like, oh, now I've heard myself talk. I actually know what my decision is. It was an area that he was feeling really stuck in. He wasn't quite sure what path to take. He had a lot of this kind of back and forth going on in his head. And just hearing himself, like sometimes it's just asking really good questions. And of course, that's
Yeah.
what it is that
Yeah.
we do for our clients. And we teach our clients to do the same thing. And leading down that path there, one of the things that you talk about in your book is how people can overcome the objections to making these introductions. And I've not buried the lead so much in that. Obviously, questions are a lot to do with it. Share some thoughts around that with us.
Yeah, so actually I have a simple formula which really can be applied to any scenario. You want to go out to a restaurant with your spouse and she doesn't want to go, right? Whatever it is, right? Except for teenagers. There's,
That's a
when it
whole
comes to
other.
teenagers, there's nothing that good, solid logic won't aggravate further. So the key is to understand that the concept is they're not ready to hear your position or your logic or your thinking or why you want to do it until you've heard theirs. And them saying, no, I don't want to, is not fully hearing theirs, right? So first step, and the first two steps come almost instantaneously. First step is to acknowledge and explore. So let's just say, let's go to the referral thing, right? Let's say someone says, referral, I don't like to give referrals. Acknowledge, yeah, it's fine. I know some people don't. I'm curious. Have you had a bad experience? Can you tell me a little more? Great words, by the way. Tell me more. These are
And
the
I'm
three best
curious.
words. And curious is a great word too.
Uh-huh.
right? Because it's a soft, for those of us old enough to remember Columbo, the bumbly detective, very
Uh-huh.
soft in how we got into the conversations. I want to know more. Now, once I've learned what happened in their situation, whatever, what are they concerned about, I might be able to reframe their thinking. What if you could talk to them first? Or what if we did an email introduction and they heard from you first, and then I follow up there? So we can present perhaps a different way that's in their head, and that might open them up to it. That's the reframe. Or they may not want to go there, in which case we back off. It's a kind of a rule of thumb. It's we acknowledge, explore, learn a little bit about the situation. If we feel there might be another way to look at it, we present that. If they don't want to go there, we get that second objection. They repeat the same objection. I just don't want to go. Whatever it is. Now it's time to back off.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the exploration, the understanding their perspective that helps us earn the right to share our perspective. And so we can't yes, but objections or concerns. We have to yes, and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge and explore. And then we see what comes up in the dialogue. And we might be able to reframe their thinking. We might, not a big deal. I don't teach an aggressive approach, a hammer approach to introductions. And we do know, and I bet you everybody listening to this can relate to this. Everyone here is asked at some point in time for an introduction to somebody else. The client didn't want to do it for whatever reason. And then later, that client comes back and say, hey, I think I got somebody for you. Right. So we know that the asking and even getting some resistance and backing off still plants a really nice seed for the future, promotes the possibility for later, and it works very well. So that's my thing on the objections, the concerns. And in the book, I give lots of different scenarios, different objections that he's already working with an advisor, or I don't like to give referrals, or let me think about it. And so just variations of the formula for the different situations.
Yeah, it was a real light bulb for me when I understood that an objection is not a no. An objection is a question. Usually it means that there's something that has not been expressed, has not been asked, has not been resolved.
You don't know until you explore, right? If you just take it at face value, then of course it's a no because you took it as a no and that's all it ever is.
Right.
But if you explore and learn a little more about it to see what's gone in that situation, they may have a mistaken assumption of how you want to reach out to their friend or colleague. And all you got to do is just shift that and make them realize. What I like to say is after I've listened, and it's not a hard double no, I've listened, I'll say, I appreciate that. And I have a little different perspective on it. Can I share that? So I've earned the right and I'm getting permission to share a slightly different perspective. And most people will say, sure. Look, all of this is based on the relationship you have with your clients and prospects and centers of influence. So the better the relationship you have, the easier all this gets, of course, and the more latitude you have in terms of how much you might go for a certain result versus backing off a lot more quickly. So context is king when it comes to this sort of thing.
Of course, absolutely. And as you said, sometimes it is a hard no. I think the distinction that I was making there was more like the mindset in my own mind, in that
Yep.
when I first started out in sales, because we're almost all in sales. Sales is the highest form of service. If you're matching someone with a need in an aligned way. And when I first started having sales type conversations to be in service, in my mind, as soon as an objection came up, it was a no, because I didn't have the tools and I didn't have the skills at that point in time to get curious. And
Sure.
so that's where I was going with my commentary. And yes, then there are points in time when you just need to recognize that, yeah, someone just isn't going to go there. And obviously you don't want to push or pressure them.
Right. And sometimes it's clear right away. I don't do this. But usually that's not it. But you're right. It's the internal thinking first. And just learn. That's all you got. If you just learn to understand the concern, the objection, the resistance, that's all you got to do first. And in the learning, you'll be thinking, you'll be hearing new things. Sometimes you can shift the perspective and sometimes you can't.
Absolutely. Bill, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to end
Thank you.
with a question around purpose and legacy. What
Mhm.
is it that you do on the day to day, like bringing it down into the actionable side of things? What do you do for yourself that could be helpful for others to make sure that you stay in alignment with what it is that you really want to create in the world and not get distracted by all the, various different temptations and ways of thinking?
Squirrel. I see a squirrel. Uh, um,
Exactly.
you're asking an ADD guy, how do you not get distracted? And a lot of entrepreneurs are ADD, sometimes to extreme, but yet they can hyper focus and get things done. Yeah, that's a good question. I'll tell you, for me personally, is I try to be, first of all, extremely organized with my calendar and planning my day and knowing what I want to try to accomplish on that day. That really helps. That's from a micro level. I also have learned over the years, I could have 100 plates spinning and I think I'm doing fine. It's just like natural for me. Drives my team crazy. And it's really driving me crazy and I don't realize it. Over the last 5, 6 years, I've learned just not to spin so many dang plates
Mm.
and just realize, all right, that's a great idea and it doesn't have to be done now. So I just make sure I park it in a place where I won't forget about it. So this next book I'm writing, After the Language of Referrals, around educating folks around money and beliefs and all, that's something that I had on back burner for a long time. And I got inspired by another speaker at a conference, and he had done something similar enough to where maybe it's time for that. And all of a sudden, two and two got put together for me, and I went forward. So you don't have to do it all at once. Just two, three, maybe for me anyway. That's what seems to work. And it also helps the people around us. If anyone knows the Colby scale, if you're a quick start, I'm a quick start on the Colby scale. It means I will start things easily, quickly, and
Mhm.
I will change them quickly. But I tell my staff, we're not changing, we're enhancing. But it drives them nuts if it's too much. That's
That
my answer. Sticking to
and
it.
self-awareness, I think, is really important, like that
Oh,
we
yeah.
recognize that. And to your point, a lot of the folks that I work with at high levels, burnout is a real risk. And oftentimes it is because
Yes.
they're trying to be all things to all people instead of taking that time to be grounded, be centered, work out what's really important, and stay on mission, stay on.
Yeah. Stay on mission. That's it. That was what I was going to say. If it's part of the mission, entertain it. If it's not,
Mhm.
it better be really darn good, timely, relevant if you're going to add it to the mission. Otherwise, back burner, don't lose it forever. Or maybe you do. Maybe you just let it go. It's just, we can't pursue every opportunity that comes our way. And we can't pursue every great idea that comes our way. It's just nuts if we try to do that. So, anyway, good question.
Bill, you have imparted so much amazing wisdom and knowledge that I think can be, I know financial services industry for sure, but I think it can be applied to so many different industries, leaders, businesses. So thank you so much for sharing that. Where can people find you, and what's the best place for them to go to get information about your new book?
So the book has its own little website, languageofreferrals.com, also Amazon and all those good places. And my website is referralcoach.com. And I'm on LinkedIn or Bill at referralcoach.com. So I'm very accessible, happy to answer questions and see how I can assist.
Awesome. And we will also include in the show notes links to Bill's resources, his website. He's got some amazing free resources. So absolutely check out the show notes, even if you're listening to the podcast or watching it on YouTube. Check out the show notes for links to other resources from Bill Cates. And it's Cates with a C.
Cates, not Gates.
Yes, exactly. They are both
Thanks,
forces
Tony.
to be reckoned with. Thank you so much, Bill.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm glad you tuned in to the Legacy in the Making show. If you're genuinely interested in creating positive change in your business or your life or on a more global scale, I invite you to connect with me at tonymarie.com. That's Tony with a Y, Marie with two E's. When you get there, you'll find the Path to Purpose Master Plan, a truly brilliant method to make sure you're clear on why you're here. This is the absolute critical foundation to honing your instincts and leaving a legacy you'll be proud of. Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.